hello. Hello, hello, plant. Welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant. And every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, got something for you, just for you. In the morning sun, where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello, to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant. In every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide. Personal touch with our garden design, free sessions to blend within your budget line. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello, plant. Welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant. In every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Now everybody, let's say hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, plant. Welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant. And every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, got something for you, just for you. In the morning sun, where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello, plant. Welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant. In every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide. Personal touch with our garden design, free sessions to blend within your budget line. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, flowers tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant. In every shade and room, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Now everybody, let's say hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, plant. Welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello, plant.
Everyone, and welcome back to our live Q&A, back to our regular program of a Monday 12 p.m. Last week was a little bit different, but we are going to be jumping back into our normal weekly Monday live Q&As. So our live Q&As is where you can come and ask any questions you have about plants, about gardening, any garden designs, anything at all related to it. It could be as simple as maybe you have a pot plant that's struggling, or maybe you are working on a garden project and need some inspiration, or you just want to learn more about gardening in general. You're keen to kind of get more into gardening. It's a really great hobby to have, actually. So all you need to do is just comment below a question. I'm going to ask it to Chris here, who has decades and decades of knowledge and expertise in this industry. So he's able to answer almost any question you have. And then that's how we're going to do it. We're on.
Couldn't you just say decades rather than decades and decades? It makes me sound ancient.
I just think it really emphasizes how much you know, Chris.
Yeah, next week you'll be saying decades and decades and decades.
At least I'm not saying centuries.
Yeah.
And so we're on a lot of different platforms. So I'm just going to be asking it in a chronological order. So if you want to make sure that your question's definitely going to get asked, then better to get in quicker rather than later. I can already see some questions coming in, which is really great. Just before I hop into them, also just a note, we run these for 45 minutes, so you have until 12:45 to get your questions in. Do you want to tell them about the live that we're doing this Friday, though, just before we hop into it, about our next flash sale?
Actually, what it is, this is something I'm particularly interested in, and like a little story. When I was 7, I was short and fat, and I went door knocking, and I was looking for, I wanted some pocket money, and I thought I could do gardening. And at any rate, so I went door knocking, and people looked me up and down. Heaps of people knocked on all these doors. I was up in Mount Dandenong, and I was going door to door, and there wasn't that many houses around, so I ended up a long way from home. And I went and knocked on a door, and this lovely old lady, she was a retired photographer. She looked me over, and instead of saying no like everyone else had that day, she said, "Oh, I'll give you a job." She said, "Come here at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning," and I went there, and she basically, she'd retired, bought herself an acre block up in the Dandenongs. I built a little white cottage, weatherboard cottage there, and she had a cottage garden which she worked like a job. She'd get up in the morning, she'd work all day in a cottage garden every day, and I worked there every Saturday doing most of the heavy lifting and moving stuff around for her. But she took plenty of time and really taught me lots about gardening, and particularly about cottage gardening, and so I've always had a real interest and love in cottage gardens, and so this week I decided. Quite a few growers have offered us some really good deals on cottage plants, and we're putting together a beautiful range. We're working on it today, actually, putting together a beautiful range of cottage plants, and we're going to cover different aspects of cottage, like a Hampton-style cottage, a native cottage, and general cottage, and feature trees for your cottage garden, and some evergreens to pop in your cottage garden. So we're going to handle all different aspects, and if you were to come next Friday, now cottage gardens really work. Like they give you flowers all year round. They're a sort of a romantic and pretty thing. And so this Friday live at 12 o'clock, it's all about cottage gardens, and you'll have an opportunity to pick up beautiful cottage garden plants, cheap, and to learn a lot about cottage gardens and about putting together a cottage garden. So our Friday, our Grower Direct flash sale this Friday, 12 o'clock, is all about cottage gardens, and it's something that I'll do a great job with because it's something that I really love and I'm interested in.
Exactly. And the deals that are present in that live will run for another week until our next flash sale the following Friday. So these flash sales are running on a weekly basis, and each one has a different theme, a different kind of like type of plant that we're doing. And so if you want to make sure that you do get these amazing deals, if you see one of your favorite plants or a plant you've been wanting, make sure to get in quick because in a week it will be gone. But without further ado, let's jump straight into these questions, starting with Katie's question. What would be your favorite plant suggestion for a garden bed that runs up the side of a driveway? My neighbor's big golden cane palms shade half of it, but the rest gets pretty direct afternoon sun.
Right, okay. Do you know that I think Nandina, and there's a few different nice sorts of Nandina. You've got your Nandina moonbow, your dwarf Nandina, and it sounds like when you say golden cane palms, you might be coming from up north somewhere. And the one that's really aimed for up north is your, what's the Nandina?
Half moon?
Blush, Nandina blush. Nandina blush is designed for, in a more tropical environment, designed to give you a bit of colour. So Nandina blush, if just the golden cane palms make you think you're in southern Queensland or northern New South Wales, and Nandina blush might be the Nandina for you. But Nandina's, my dad, great nurseryman, and he owned quite a few properties, and he always put Nandinas up the driveway, and they're a great hard-wearing plant. You can get out, they won't scratch your car door. You can drop your groceries on them, they fold over and stand back up again, and they're a beautiful round, low-maintenance plant, great for a driveway. So you really couldn't go wrong. And if you are up north, go blush. If you're down south here, you could look at lemon lime Nandina, you could look at dwarf Nandina, or you could look at moonbay Nandina. All great choices and fairly economical, very, very hardy and very low on the maintenance.
Perfect. Katie says that they're in Brisbane.
I suspected so, yeah, just by the sound of that golden cane palms. We don't have many golden cane palms up our driveways in Melbourne. So I thought, I think the best Nandina for you is the Nandina blush.
Perfect. Next question is, do you deliver to Kyabram?
Kyabram, yes we do.
Okay, perfect.
Yes we do, and I think we might, when you spend over $300, we charge a little bit into Kyabram because we're free out to Shepparton, but we're not quite out to, but if you spend a bit more than $300, I'm sure you could talk to our sales staff and negotiate a free delivery in Kyabram. And at $300 you might be paying $50 or something to get them out to Kyabram.
Perfect. And are you able to order, this is just the same question from Pip, are you able to order different type of camellias that aren't online?
Yes, we do. I have two researchers working away today, and what they do is they look at, and we call it price and availability, and what they do is different people want things, like we've got 15,000 plants online and we've got quite a few different camellias, but we don't have everything. And so what we do is, as a service for people, we do what's called a price and availability. And basically you could ring up and ask us for anything, which doesn't mean we'll find anything, but we'll try and find it. And if we do, we'll quote you a size and a price.
Perfect. All right, next question from Katie again. Any trees that would thrive in terrible clay soil? Want to block the side of my yard from being visible from the park we live next to. And just again, they're in Brisbane. Okay,
so hard to get in Brisbane, but Ulmus duralensis is kind of subtropical. We could maybe find some small ones and post them up to you, but Ulmus duralensis is very, very interesting plant. It's used in Central America. It's very popular in Melbourne for some strange reason, but it's used in Central America around coffee plantations. It loves heavy clay. It loves inundation, which is what occasionally happens in Brisbane, or is happening at the moment. So it loves a bit of inundation. It loves, and you might have to water it a little bit during the dry times, but it'll basically get in and break up hard clay. And the only thing is that it can be, if you let it get too big, you wouldn't grow it right near your house, because a really big ulmus, duralensis, or evergreen alder as they're more commonly called, can be a bit hard on your foundations if it's too close to the house. So if you're doing them close to the house, you keep them trimmed and not let them get too big, but they love heavy clay. They love that subtropical Brisbane. They grow well in Melbourne, but they love that subtropical Brisbane climate. And they used to be very popular, but they're a little bit hard to get, but I'm sure we could find some smaller ones and post them up to you.
Perfect. All right, next one is, some of my week-old sweet viburnum I planted near Newcastle are dying, mulched and seaweed fertilised.
Okay, so I would dig, like what I would do is, if I was there, what I would do is I'd dig up one that was in the balance, one that was kind of, not the dead ones. It's pretty hard to look at a dead one and see what happened, but when they're on the way, like they sort of look at it, you don't know whether it's going to be alive or dead, that's the one to dig up and look and see what's going on. I suspect dryness if they've only been in for a short period of time, and that could be caused by a number of things. It could be caused by burying them down deep in soil that won't allow water penetration, and that's the most likely thing. And also it could be caused by you'll find I've got all little videos about using those little guns that they sell down at Bunnings, and that the little guns that you little half-inch hose with a little gun on it, because almost it makes a hissing noise and a bit of spray comes out of it, but it doesn't move any volume of water, and that lack of volume can actually to water a plant you need adequate volume. Now what you could do is you could scrape the soil away. What you do is dig up one that's in the balance, see if it is dry or has dried up, replant it again. I suspect you're dry, so what I would do is I would peel back the top layer of soil as much as I can to get down close to the root ball. I'd go get some soil wetter and maybe a nice powdered soil wetter from down. We have it in the store here, but you're in Castlemaine, it might be a bit hard to get it. So I'd get onto it real quickly. Peel away the topsoil a bit down to close to the root ball. Then what I do is I get some soil wetter, I'd sprinkle that all around the bases of them, all along there, and then I'd get, say, a socket hose, which is that old-fashioned thing that they had at kids' parties with little tiny sprays coming out. I'd get a socket hose, hook it up, and give them a sort of a slow, deep soak and get them nice and wet. And that's done after peeling back the soil and after putting on a bit of chemical soil wetter. And actually I've done that a couple of times with and I've seen them absolutely limp and terrible and shocking, and I've done it, and by the next morning they're looking fabulous again. So peel back the topsoil, add some soil wetter, grab a socket hose, that's that old-fashioned sort of collapsible bright green hose, and give them a long, deep, slow soak.
Perfect. All right, the next dilemma is, I'm renovating a terrace with a sheltered courtyard and no direct sun. Anything I can plant in 40 centimetre garden bed to grow lush and green on neighbouring wall to 4 metres plus. Can I plant in early spring? I'm in Melbourne.
To 4 metres plus?
Yep.
Okay. 4 metres plus, that's a tall order in the shade. Actually, we're just talking sweet viburnum will do that for you. There's a couple of different sweet viburnums, but you could use, what's it called, green luster, emerald luster. Emerald luster viburnum would be a good choice for that. And you could also, like, just to jazz it up a bit, other things that would grow in complete shade in a courtyard that would make it exciting and nice to be in would be your giant elephant ears, your taro, and your tractor seeds. They're things you could put in there to jazz it up a little bit. And then the emerald luster viburnum seems to do really, really well in the shade, and that's about a 4 metre hedge.
Perfect. Chris, we forgot your tutu today.
Oh, I didn't I?
We were gonna do. We'll do the tutu next Monday. Sorry, with all the public holidays, it's been a bit hectic over here. Shorter working weeks.
I wore it on my Friday live.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all the way through.
You guys can go watch that live actually, because we got the video embedded on our website. If you head over to Chris's blog and to the Indian Summer flash sale.
And you'll see me looking gorgeous in my pink tutu.
Exactly. Or, I mean, you can go check out our other posts as well. We have quite a lot of videos with you in the tutu. Yeah. Maybe a bit further back, but I mean, if you want to scroll far enough, you'd find them. But sorry about that, guys. We'll try and do this next Monday instead. Just a little update on that week-old sweet viburnum. The person has said that it's been very wet all week in Newcastle. Leaves turned brown and fell off. Well watered daily when not raining. Has that maybe changed your answer at all about the sweet viburnum that's not doing well?
What it was prior to that rain, it would have been hot. It was hot and dry for a week or two prior to that rain. So I reckon that they dried out prior to the rain, and now they're probably nice and wet, but it's probably a little bit too late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what it is there's only two things that can affect them. One is wet feet, and the other one is dryness, and I doubt that they'd have that effect of wet feet planted so quickly. So I'd say that they might have gone in a bit dry, and were a bit dry for a few, because viburnums go down very quickly when they're dry. And I'd say they've gone down, been damaged before the rain, and then the leaves would still be turning brown and dropping during the rain.
Yep. Is this a case where you think they could still fix it, or?
I think so. They have, like I found that the sweet viburnums are really good. Like they look terrible when they dry out, and with a bit of care you can get them to shoot and grow back again.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to Kyle's question. Is acacia sterling silver suitable for on top of a high black wall?
Acacia silver.
Sterling silver.
Sterling silver. Acacia sterling silver. I don't know. Could you Google that one for me, please?
It's an acacia. It must be maybe a particular type of acacia that we don't sell, but I'll just look it up now to see maybe if it has different names. Well, it says it enjoys a full sun to part shade position in well-drained soil. Responds well to a light prune. It looks like that if you look up there. It looks like this one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it's a dwarf one. Now, what was the question again with that one?
Is acacia sterling silver suitable for on top of a high black wall?
I think so. Acacias are great at taking exposure. What they love is acacias all love well-drained soil. So a nice, loose, well-drained soil, a little bit of moisture, and it'll take a very exposed, windy position. No worries.
Perfect. All right. Next question is, how often should I water my indoor plants?
Most people seem to water their indoor plants wrong, and I guess that keeps the whole indoor plant industry going, because they have indoor plants dying like flies. So my partner's got a really, really nice mother-in-law's tongue, which is a Sansevieria. We've got them just left over there. At any rate, I reckon it only gets watered every 3 or 4 weeks. And
Whoa.
I remember my mum, so that gets watered almost never. But the trick is, and like in summer you would water more often than what you would in winter. But I think where people go wrong is that they hear about not watering too often, and then they don't water much too often. Like they only put on a tiny drop. Like they. I had a person the other day, and he'd had a peace lily, and it was collapsed from lack of water, and he'd been watering it, but I think he'd only been putting like a thimbleful of water onto it, and so we'd say something like a peace lily in the house out of direct sun. In summer, you might water that every 7 or 8 days, but you put it in the laundry trough and give it a good soak, and then let it drip dry in the laundry trough. So basically, don't water too often, but give them a decent water when you do water them. I've got a couple. What have I got? I've got a ficus benjamina, a big one. It's about 6 or 7 foot tall in the lounge room, and I've got a lady palm, and I'm probably only watering them every 2 weeks, but I give them a really good soak when I do. So really good soak when I do. Hardly water, but the people that water hardly ever and hardly anything hardly ever, that's a bit of a disaster recipe. So basically it says that most indoor plants would like a long space between water, and that space gets longer in the winter. They want a long space between watering, but a decent water when they do get it.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, next one is, I'm in Melbourne and would like to know what I should be doing in the garden right now in preparation for autumn/winter.
Actually, first of all, weeds have been growing ferociously through the summer, they grow, and so now is a good time to start getting on top of the weeds. Like you can spray with a bit of Roundup if they're not right in hard amongst the plants. But if you attack the weeds don't grow or seed or procreate as much during the winter as what they do in the spring and summer. So now is a good time to attack the weeds. It's also plants, your evergreens and things like that. It's a really good time to give them a feed. If they're needing a bit of lime, it's a good time to put a bit of lime on them. So fertilising, weeding, and I was just talking to a lady before, and she's got an evergreen hedge that needs an evergreen viburnum hedge that needs work, and she cut it just this weekend. I said, "Oh, you shouldn't have done it," because what I would do to get your bigger, say your evergreen, things like English boxes and viburnums and petrosums and things like that, don't hack them back hard now. If they're out of shape. It's the same. I've got a big lily pilly hedge at home that needs some treatment. I'm going to leave. It's not going to grow much from now through till springtime, and I'm going to let them photosynthesize and take up all the sun's energy. And it applies to English box and that. You can give things a light trim now, but if it's badly out of shape, it needs a big trim. Give it a feed now, maybe, and with that little bit of rain, it's a great time to start watering. And so you can give them a feed. You can give plants deep soaks, now it's cooled down. Give them a deep soak so that they've got a bit of moisture and they can take up some fertiliser and take up some moisture. But leave the heavy pruning until just before the start of the growing season, like so in August or early September, just before they start growing, and that's when you cut things hard. Same with camellias, you cut them hard when they finish flowering, which will be mostly towards springtime. So basically back off on your hard trimming and look at maybe a deep soak, look at some fertilising, and look at getting on top of the weeds. Now's the time to get on top of the weeds. If you attack them now and stick with them through the winter, by the time spring comes, if you've eliminated the weeds, they can't procreate and they can't. The battle's over for next summer.
Yep. Just to follow up on the viburnum question. Just the plant in 40 centimetre garden bed to grow 4 metres high. When is the best time to plant the viburnum recommended for my courtyard? Can I plant in early spring?
I actually think now is better, because what they'll do, they're an evergreen, they'll be growing roots and establishing themselves, and then you'll get a better burst of growth in spring. But Melbourne's a great place, but we have such sort of mild weather. It seems terrible, the weather sometimes in Melbourne, but from a plant's point of view, it ain't that hot and it ain't that cold, it ain't that anything really. It's sort of a really good middle of the road kind of weather. You can plant them your viburnums, you can plant them 365 days a year, but I think right now it's a little bit better than spring.
Perfect. All right, next question is, I don't have a lot of space, just a small garden, but I would love to have some autumn colour. What are some plant recommendations?
I'm just thinking, it's an interesting thing. So small garden, autumn colour, you have to have the right soil, but dogwoods, like a pink dogwood, a white dogwood, fabulous autumn. They have beautiful spring blossom and fabulous autumn colour. And then things like your berberis. You can get all different coloured berberis, and berberis have amazing autumn colour. Then there's your like little weeping Japanese maples, or like your Shana Japanese maples, fabulous autumn colour. And then there is, and I can't think of the proper name of it, there's a euonymus. It's called a firebush or something like that, but we've got them on our website, and if you ask one of our staff, we can track them down for you. But a mate of mine grows this euonymus, which we sell them on our website, and I was up there he was telling me they got fantastic autumn colour, and it's amazing. They've got really interesting sort of twigs on them and amazing autumn colour. And actually probably the best small autumn colour thing I've ever seen was back years ago. The lady I used to work for when I was a child, her favourite autumn colour plant was a little bush about this big and about this wide, and that was called a Fotogilla major. Very rare and hard to get, but if you ask our P&A, our price and availability team, they'd probably track you down one. Fotogilla major, beautiful flowers, but this firebush, which is a euonymus, is nearly as good as that for autumn colour. So there's berberis, so you got berberis, euonymus, you got little weeping Japanese maples, and a Fotogilla major.
Perfect. All right. Really wonderful
And
recommendations.
dogwoods, of course.
Yes, and dogwoods, which do have incredible spring blossoms. You should see our videos on a pink dogwood. It looks incredible.
Yeah, and what it is, they're good enough to grow just for the spring blossom, and then the autumn colour is amazing, and it's just a bonus.
Fantastic. All right. Just another follow-up from Adam about the viburnum. Any tips for, sorry, I just saw another comment come through. Any tips for establishing them well, pruning and water? So that's the first one.
Right, okay, so I some slow release fertiliser could be good. And then, you know, a regular good soak. Like the viburnum seem to love their water. So some good, and use good soil as well. Maybe mix some nice quality potting mix in when you plant them. And if you're in a hurry, our 12-inch pot viburnums at the moment are coming in at about 1.2, 1.3 metres, so well on the way, and you'd have them up over 2 metres within a year.
Perfect. And just another one there. What size would you buy to establish them well? I guess you kind of answered that.
I think what it is, it depends on your budget. Like what it is, if you buy little tiny ones, 4 years from now, or big ones, 4 years from now, you won't know. But if you're in a hurry to get some action, you'd go for a 12-inch pot, which they'd come in at about $89.99 each, and they'd be about 1.2 to 1.5 metres tall. So you've got plenty of size, and those 12-inch pots, good gutsy plants, plenty of water, plenty of fertiliser, you have them up over 2 metres in a year. So you're well on your way in 12 months that way.
Yeah, perfect. All right, got one here from Wendy. I have a lady di creeper growing on a fence, and it is getting a lot of seed pods.
What's going on?
A lady di creeper.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen them get lots of seed pods before. It must be just the season or something like that. Yeah.
Wendy, are you wanting advice on how to get rid of it, or are you just worried, just wanting to know if that's like normal or okay? Just let us know with a follow-up comment. In the meantime,
I'll just comment on that. Often a plant's going to seed is often a sign of a bit of stress. Now we have had a very, very dry summer, and what that plant, like a plant sort of almost talk to you in ways, that plant could be telling you that it's a little bit stressed, because I haven't seen them give off lots of seed pods before. It could be just something to do with the season, but it could also have had a bit of a stressful summer.
Yeah, Wendy just wants to know, should I take them off, the seed pods?
Yeah, I think you could. They're not going to hurt it, and the plant has expended energy. I guess if you took them off, it will stop expending energy on those seed pods, and that will help the plant.
Okay, perfect. Okay, next question is from Emma. We want to plant boundary plants suitable for livestock, but also for privacy. It's a frost large area.
Right, okay. A large frost area. So one of the best, you know, in a frosty area, and lots of farmers use them around their fields, like particularly up in Gippsland where you've got lots of dairy, you know, quite valuable livestock like dairy cattle and things like that, is Fertinia robusta. And Fertinia robusta's got the word robust actually woven into its Latin name, and you'll find that a very, very robust, easy thing to grow and very fast thing to grow. You could plant a 6-inch pot right now, and give it plenty, have grass and weed control, a bit of water in the summer, plenty of fertiliser, and have it up 1.8 metres a year from now, just from a little inexpensive 6-inch pot.
Incredible. All right. Next question is, how do I make my plants grow faster and healthier? How do I make my plants grow faster and healthier?
Right. Okay. What it is, you couldn't generalize about all plants, and like it's interesting. I learn something almost every day. We've just moved to a new production nursery site, and snow in summer is one of our lovely little silver ground cover. It's one of our really popular plants. We always have to produce lots of them, but all of a sudden they started growing really badly for us, and then luckily one of the people working in our nursery this is our production nursery, discovered that the snow and this one that we've got's got plenty of water, and we've been using the water very liberally. It discovered that the snow in summer don't like so much water, and it's interesting. We moved the snow in summer into their own little pad with less irrigation on their own little irrigation line, and all of a sudden they're looking fabulous. So there's always that element of observation that one doesn't like as much water as the others, and so the general thing is adequate water, good fertiliser, a good all-rounder is your Osmocote, but you can't beat observation. Like I remember one time I'd never grown them before, the big agaves, the ones with the big silver grey rosettes. I decided to grow them, and because they're kind of cactusy looking, I thought, well gee, I'll put them in the hottest, driest part of my nursery, and they sat there for months and months and months, and they didn't grow. And then there was a bit of a hailstorm, and one of my workers decided to move them out of the hailstorm into a great big shade house that I had that had lots of irrigation because it was full of all beautiful maple trees. And he put them in between all the maple trees, and they started growing at an unbelievable rate. So I learned that those big silver grey agaves love water and fertiliser and a little bit of shade. And so it's that. And so now if I wanted to grow agaves really quickly, I'd give them plenty of water, plenty of fertiliser, and a little just take that real hot sunny sting off them. So I guess observation is, although there's water, there's fertiliser, that little bit of observation, and you'll find that nurserymen often, when they're walking around looking at each other's stock and say, oh, that's going well, and they'll say, oh look, I just found out, or I just figured out, or I just saw that if you do this or you do that, I was at a nursery the other night, and he said he discovered that when he grows maples from cuttings, and if he pots them in, if he leaves them in their cutting trays through the winter, he's found that he has a lot of them die in the spring. But but he's just done an experiment. Now he's potting them in autumn, and they're looking really, really good. And it looks like he'll get a much better strike on his maples by potting in the autumn instead of potting in the spring. So it's that constant observation that really gives you the power. And probably the most important thing I ever learned about growing plants is a chap I know who's a very smart guy, and he's a botanist by education. He told me that plants want to grow. And now that might seem silly, and he said, what you've got to do is let them grow. He said, don't stop them from growing. Don't do anything to stop them from growing. So it's an interesting thing is that when plants aren't growing, it could be that you're doing something to stop them from growing. Which could be lack of water, lack of fertiliser, providing them with the wrong environment, like shade when they want sun or sun when they want shade, or too cold or too hot or something like that. So the most interesting thing I've ever learned in horticulture, and the thing that guides me with everything that I do, is the concept or idea that plants want to grow, and the trick is don't stop them. Like just what you do is you contribute to their. And my father, great nurseryman, grew lots and lots of different sorts of plants and seemed to master them very, very quickly. The first thing he'd do is he would study where these plants came from. Like I remember 55 years ago, he was trying to work out how to grow silver birch, and he realised that the silver birch, when the seed falls, it falls, and then the snow falls on top of the seed, and it sits under the snow. It sits under the snow for a couple of months, and then as the snow melts, it's very, very wet, and the birch germinates in the mud and the melting snow in the springtime. And so what he started doing is he started picking his birch seed, mixing it up with peat, making it sort of nice and mushy and wet, and then putting his birch seed into the fridge for the winter, and then we'd bring it out in the springtime. And when it was just starting to warm, we'd sprinkle it on the seedling beds, and we'd put shade over it, and we'd water it, and we'd water it 2 or 3 times a day, and in no time at all, we'd do 5 or 10 kilos of birch seed. In no time at all, we'd have a couple of 100,000 birches all pop up on the beds, beautiful little green birches, and he did that by observation and observing how what happens with the birch seed. It gets frozen, then it thaws and it's wet and muddy, and then it germinates. And so that observation led him to be able to grow. And he then grew birches for another 40 years, and he probably grew quite a few million birches and became the major birch supplier in southeastern Australia, just from learning and studying how birches really work.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, such a long answer, but observation is so important in horticulture. There's knowing things, but then there's observing and then applying little experiments to cash in on those observations.
Exactly. All right, next one is a very interesting question. Have you heard of electroculture, Chris? I've just looked it up if you want a definition.
Yeah.
So, electroculture, I'll just first define it, then ask the question. Electroculture is a practice that explores the use of electricity, copper wire, and magnets to potentially improve.
I'm just doing a live. I'll talk after. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, guys. We'll be done in like 10 minutes. Yeah. Electroculture is a practice that explores the use of electricity, copper wire, and magnets to potentially improve plant growth and crop yields. It involves using these tools to manipulate the soil and plant environment, aiming to enhance conditions for growth and development. Now, the question is, what is your view on electroculture? If you've heard about this at all, or if you've seen anyone in the industry practicing it, Chris, it's very, very interesting. It seems to be quite new.
I think that back in the 60s, there was a big sensation when L. Ron Hubbard, the chap that founded Scientology, hooked up tomatoes to an electrical flow and was able to show emotional responses to various things. So there are electronic fields around plants, and so electroculture could be a way of harnessing and basically there was a whole series of newspaper articles that went all over the world explaining how plants have got feelings and plants have emotional reactions to things like being threatened by burning or something like that, and that those reactions can be measured with a thing called an e-meter, which is what L. Ron Hubbard did. He showed that plants could react to a thing, that they actually have a memory, and they have reactions, and it's all of that could be tapped and mapped electronically. And because that could be tapped and mapped and following from what L. Ron Hubbard did, there was a very famous book came out in the 70s, I've got a copy of it, called Supernature, which explores those types of things. So certainly plants have electronic fields around them. Those electronic fields can be measured and studied. So the use of electricity could well be very, very important. And the other one that fascinates me is that back at the same time, back in the 50s and the 60s...
Someone goes, don't tell the vegans that plants have feelings.
That's pretty funny, isn't it?
Sorry, continue, Chris.
But yeah, there was articles all over the world, and then you had a book called Supernature, which went into that a little bit further, and I bought a copy of that on Amazon not so long ago. I read it when I was a kid, but then I bought a copy on Amazon. I've been rereading it recently. But the other one that really fascinates me is what took off back in the 50s and early 60s is atomic gardening. And atomic gardening is really fascinating, and even today, so back in those days, they were having terrible trouble growing peppermint because peppermint was getting a type of fungal wilt in it and collapsing, and whole fields of peppermint would collapse, and the world was short of peppermint. And what they did was that they got the peppermint and they irradiated the seed and grew seedlings, and then they found a seedling that didn't get that disease problem, and then that was propagated, and the peppermint that you eat today comes from the atomic gardening that was done back in the 50s and 60s. And also your red orange is another product of atomic gardening, and so what it was that and what atomic gardening's fascinating, because what it is, it kind of reminds me of going to you've probably got better luck there, of going to the casino and using those one-armed bandits. What happens is that you get you get some seed or some genetic material, and you expose it to just the right level of radiation, and then you pull your handle, and you get a whole lot of seed or plants, and then you grow them all, and you'll get different characteristics. And it fascinates me that atomic gardening went out of favour and people have gone to genetic mutation, because genetic mutation is much slower and much more expensive than using the atomic method, which is the irradiation, production of plants, and then testing the different plants to find one that has the desirable characteristics. So I think that use of electricity with plants would certainly be valid, and I often wonder why the atomic gardening fell out of favour, because it seems like a way that that almost anybody could have access. If you had a disease, had a disease in your bananas or something like that, you can very quickly create a banana that won't get that same disease using atomic gardening. So there's probably quite a few technologies with plants that probably haven't been fully explored or utilised or put out in the community that are really, really valid.
Very interesting. What a wonderful question. Thank you. That was a really interesting discussion there. We got another question about your thoughts. This is in regards to thoughts on wicking beds and the plastic reservoirs versus organic matter.
Sorry, what was that?
It says thoughts on wicking beds,
Yeah.
W-I-C, yeah. And the plastic reservoirs versus organic matter. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Okay. Look, I think for some people with a very, very confined area, I think that the idea of wicking beds is great, and you can still use compost and still use good quality organic material in those wicking beds. But I think for growing good vegetables and things like that, you can't beat organic manures and compost and that to get. When I was a kid, we had a cow and we had about 1 acre of vegetables. So we provided the whole neighbourhood with vegetables. We had an acre of vegetables. We had a cow. Our cow ate bucket loads of the vegetables. It ate pasture. It ate oats and things like that. And we gathered the cow manure, threw it in the compost heap together with all of our household scraps and things like that. And then that compost heap was the only source of fertiliser in our veggie patch. And I still remember, like, our potatoes, our carrots, tomatoes tasted absolutely fabulous compared to the stuff that I buy today that are grown with chemical fertilisers. So I think there's a lot to be said for composting's good for the environment, and I'm sure that it's good to produce vegetables and have those vegetables in our food chain, both from a health point of view and from a sort of an eating enjoyment point of view.
Perfect. Dave says you need to have your own garden show. We can break into the film and television sector, Chris.
I'm available. if you've got one of them TV stations, I am available.
Perfect. Next question is from Pete. I also just want to let people know we have less than 5 minutes left of our live, so if you want to have your question answered, get it in now. Okay. Pete says, I have mandarin trees. Any advice for growth? This is my first time.
Right, okay. What I've noticed is that with citrus, their roots will grow up. And so to get good growth, I would cultivate around my tree, and I'd cultivate a 1.2 metre circle if I had that much room, and a bit smaller if I didn't quite have that room. So do a 1.2 metre circle of cultivated area, get some Osmocote. And I know I keep plugging Osmocote, but it's good stuff. Get some Osmocote and sprinkle that all around that root zone in that cultivated area, and then get some household compost and make a sort of a donut-shaped mound of household compost on top of that Osmocote, and then put a bit of soil over the top of that. So you've got this nice round, sort of like a donut or a spare tire type shape around your thing, and you'll find the roots will go up and feed in that area, and your mandarin will go berserk.
Perfect. Okay, next one. What land cover can I put in the ground this time of the year in Sydney and wants something fast growing?
Ground cover?
Yeah.
Actually, something that's just taking off in Melbourne, but seems to be really, really popular. Whenever I go to Sydney, I see it everywhere. For fast and kind of cool looking, is Canary Island ivy. It reminds me of a Monia painting. You've got these beautiful old dark green leaves, and then all the new leaves are lovely and bright green. So you've got this two-tone splotchy sort of green effect and beautiful big foliage. And that would be one of the fastest ground covers around. And I do see lots of it in Sydney, so I imagine it could be easy to get. But if not, we can send some up to Sydney if you need it. But Canary Island ivy is a good fast ground cover. If you're perhaps more natively minded, I really like the Urena, Myoporum urena, and that is beautiful and flat, takes a little bit of light traffic, or Asiatic jasmine, fabulous. So there's three for you. Canary Island ivy, and what I find with Canary Island ivy, it's a little bit wild and a little bit out there, you know, and not everybody likes it. So more conservative would be your Myoporum urena, sort of a more conservative, more lawn-like ground cover. And then sort of in between, kind of in sort of conservatism would be your Asiatic jasmine. And we've got a fantastic video on our website of Asiatic jasmine trimmed into a beautiful flat dark green sort of mass lang ground cover. I found a garden where the chap had all sorts of interesting things in his garden, but basically a layer of Asiatic jasmine right through under the garden. Looks absolutely fantastic. And that's on our website. You can see the nicely trimmed Asiatic jasmine lawn.
Incredible. Okay, well, we are out of time for today, unfortunately. If we didn't get to your question today, please do join us next Monday, 12 p.m, whatever platform you are on right now. If it is a question you'd like to have answered before then, please don't hesitate to come in store. We're in Campbellfield, or you can call us up, or you can email us and ask that same question. We'd be more than happy to help. But I hope the rest of your Monday is lovely. Make sure to join us Friday, 12 p.m, for our beautiful sale on cottage style plants. You're going to learn a lot about cottage gardens and also get some really, really good deals. So hopefully see you then. If not, have a great rest of your week. All right, see you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.